Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com, and this is layout update number 9 for my 3-rail O-scale Appalachian and Western Railroad. It's November of 2012, and it's been about 1 year since my last layout update video. And the reason it's been a year is because I've decided to only make these big layout update videos once a year, usually around November, because every November I have a big open house for the layout that's part of a tour of Atlanta area layouts called the Piedmont Pilgrimage. And so right before the open house or right after the open house, the layout is about as clean and presentable as it's going to be all year. And so it's a great time to do a big tour and update video for the layout. For this year's open house, I had a great turnout. I had 204 people come out to see the layout, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm already looking forward to next year's open house. Now, over the last year, I've made a whole lot of progress on the layout, and so what I'm going to do in this video is give you a full tour of the layout and show you all of the progress that's been made over the last year. And if you really want to get a feel for how much progress has been made, go watch layout update number 8 that I made last November in 2011, and then watch this video and you'll see just how far the layout has come in the last year. Now, before we get started, I want to say that I know a lot of you get really excited about these layout update videos. And if you don't want to wait a whole year between these big layout update videos, check out my video train blog series. I started making the blog episodes in January of 2011, and so far I've made 27 episodes. And in those episodes, you can see the day-to-day and the week-to-week and the month-to-month progress on the layout. So you can see all the little things that get done throughout the year that lead up to these big layout update videos. I typically make 1 or 2 blog episodes per month, and in each episode I will cover progress on the layout, and I'll also show you new trains that have come in and new products, and sometimes we'll even take field trips to the train store, which are always fun. So again, if you haven't checked out my video train blog series, go ahead and check it out. You can find all the episodes on my YouTube channel. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the layout tour. Now, for those of you who have never seen my layout before, I'm going to start things off with some facts and figures on the layout. The Appalachian and Western Railroad is a 3-rail O-scale layout. I began building the layout in January of 2007, and although layouts are never really 100% done, I would like for most of the stuff on the layout to be done by around 2014 or 2015. The layout is located in my basement, but the trains go through the walls so that the layout goes through 4 different rooms. But if you put all the layout together, it would be about 400 square feet in size, which is pretty big, but the fact that the layout goes through 4 different rooms actually makes it look a lot bigger than it really is. The height of the layout is 47 inches off the floor. In general, the Appalachian and Western depicts a modern railroad, and so for that reason, most of the cars and engines on the layout will be 1970s and later, and the scenery on the layout, when it's complete, will be contemporary. But even though it's a modern railroad, I still like to run steam trains and early diesel trains from time to time. The track and switches on the layout are all made by Atlas O. The trains themselves are a mixture of Lionel, MTH, Atlas, and Weaver. The minimum curve used on the layout is 063, which is used in the yard. The average curve on the layout is 072, and the largest curve is 090. The layout is 100% digital command controlled, so I use both Lionel's legacy command system and MTH's digital command system. In addition, the switches on the layout are controlled with the MTH digital command system. Power to the trains is supplied by 4 180-watt Lionel powerhouse bricks, and then the power for the switches and the rest of the accessories are supplied by a number of smaller transformers. The ballast for the track on the layout is called Brennan's Better Ballast, and it's available from Brennan's Model Railroading. The scenery supplies on the layout are a combination of materials from Brennan's Model Railroading, Woodland Scenics, and Scenic Express. The mountains, rocks, and tunnels on the layout are made using a combination of polyurethane foam and plastic casting resin that's poured into latex rock molds. I have an entire series on YouTube that documents how this is done, and I've also got a DVD for sale that shows the whole process. And lastly, the wonderful backdrops that you're going to see around the entire layout are made by a company called Backdrop Warehouse. You can find them on the web at www.backdropwarehouse.com. The layout is located in the basement, so let's head downstairs. And the first thing you can see is my growing collection of train signs. One of the newer ones is the Santa Fe Cute Caboose sign, and it's one of my favorites. And then if we continue down, it opens up into the layout. This is the main room. It's the first of 4 rooms that the layout occupies, and it consists of the main table here, and then that L-shaped extension down there. The first level of the main table consists of 3 loops of track and then a large train yard in the middle of the table. Of the 3 loops, these first 2 loops are considered mainline tracks. This loop is just a simple loop that goes around the main table. This loop also goes around the main table, but it can also be switched to go around the entire basement, and we'll follow this track around the entire basement in just a few minutes. The inner loop is the yard lead, and it's used to pull trains into the yard. This is an operational yard. It can be used to put trains together and take them apart. The first section of the yard is right here, and that's the turntable area. This is a 15-stall turntable. It is operational. The turntable itself is made by Atlas O. Whenever an engine comes into the yard, it can take a spot in one of the stalls around the turntable, or it can head down this track right here down to the engine service area. This is the future location of the engine service area. I still have to build it, but the first track there with the concrete ties and the southern crescent will be the location of the quick service track, where the engines can gas up and get a quick tune-up before heading back out on the road. And then the last 2 tracks will be the location of an enclosed full service facility. Behind the engine service area is the classification yard. The classification yard consists of 6 classification tracks, and it has a maximum capacity of 38 cars. Over the last year, I've made good progress in the main room. On the lower level, the classification yard is now completely ballasted, so the next step will be to add lights and buildings and so forth. And I've also added that cool girder bridge there with the AWRX logo on it. That's an Atlas O steel girder bridge. The creek is also done except for the water. That's the last thing I have to add. For the water, I'm going to be using the Woodland Scenics water effects. And the creek is also over here, and this side is ready for water as well. And I've also done a lot of rock work around the yard area in the last year. This rock over here is done, and the rock along the back spine is complete as well, which is nice to see. Now, there's also been progress on the upper level of the main room, but we're going to get back to that in a few minutes. Right now, what we're going to do is follow the outer main line in its loop around the basement. So we'll come this way, and there's a new dwarf signal that's operational, and then we'll go through this tunnel, which takes us through this hill, which has lots of new trees on it, and it comes out over here. And then we open up to this area that has a siding for a future industry of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what's going to go there yet. And then we come this way, and again, lots of new trees on these hills. And there's another new signal that is functional. And then we go through this tunnel into the second room of the layout, which is called the hallway room. On the other end of that tunnel, we come into what's called the hallway room. And it's called the hallway room because it's in the hallway of the basement. And the main purpose of the hallway room is to get the trains to other areas of the layout. And so for that reason, there's no room for anything major in here. But I kind of like it like that. It's kind of like the trains going through the countryside where there are no towns or any industries, and that kind of appeals to me. I like the idea of the trains just going through the countryside. If you look over here, I've got my family camping. We like to backpack a lot, so there we are. Of course, we normally don't camp with the bears. And then if we move over here, we've got an abandoned track with an old boxcar on it. And then up here, we've got some rock climbers. And that's pretty much it. Now up here, eventually I'd like to put maybe an old cabin or a power line tower or something like that. And then down where the rock climbers are, eventually I'd like to put some more rock climbers down here and maybe some steps going up to the rock climbing area. But that's pretty much it. Over the last year, I have not done a lot of work in the hallway room, mainly because while it's not finished, it is finished enough to where I can move on to other areas of the layout. And then I'll come back to this area later on and put some more details in. I have added some more trees over the last year, and I've also added a signal right there. That's pretty much it. So that's about it for the hallway room. Now in the back, there's a lift bridge and some additional track on a narrow pass on the back wall. But we'll get to both of those in just a few minutes. For now, let's go ahead and continue to follow the main line through this tunnel and into the Carolina room. On the other side of that tunnel, we come into what's called the Carolina room, And the track dips into here really quickly before it heads into that tunnel and back into the hallway room, but not before it leaves an industrial siding for a yet-to-be-named future industry of some sort. Now, this table in the Carolina room has seen a lot of progress, especially in the last 2 or 3 weeks. A few weeks ago, there was nothing here except the track, and since then, I've installed the 12th and final backdrop for the layout, and I've also completed all of this hard shell and tunnel work. It's not done yet, there's still a lot of work left to be done here, but it's coming together nicely, and I'm really pleased with the progress. Now, if you look at the backdrop, you'll see that there's a town back there. There are buildings and houses and industries and so forth. And I chose that backdrop because this table is going to be the most town-like table of the layout. There's going to be an industry there, of course, but then there will be streets and other buildings and so forth, and so that's why I chose that backdrop. Now, if you look over here, when I was doing the hard shell, originally I hadn't really planned on putting anything right here, but while I was doing the hard shell, I decided to put a little waterfall right here, and then there'll be a small lake here where I will have some swimmers and fishermen and so forth. Anyway, let's go ahead and continue to follow the main line, which goes through this tunnel and then back into the hallway room right here. And then we come to this lift bridge. This lift bridge is an Atlas O truss bridge that I converted to a lift bridge by adding hinges to one side, and that way I can lift it up and out of the way when I need to get by. So if we go across the lift bridge, that will take us into the Colorado room. On the other end of that tunnel, we come into the Colorado room, which is so named because, as the backdrops indicate, it is set in Colorado. The Colorado room is the least finished room on the layout, and because of that, it has sort of become the default workbench area and storage area for the layout. And that's why if you look over in that corner, there's a bunch of spare track and wiring and signals and so forth. That'll all disappear once the room gets more complete. Now, when we come into the Colorado room, the main line splits off into 2 lines. And then off of one of those, there's a siding that goes to what will eventually be the Coors Brewery. I'm probably going to have to scratch build the brewery, so it'll be a while before it's up and running, but that's why there's a Coors train there right now. And then if we move around this way, the track wraps around the room until we get to this switch, and that line there goes up that incline up to the 2nd level in the main room. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And then here, the 2 main lines converge back into one, and then it goes back into the hallway room and then over to the Carolina room again. Over the last year, I have not made as much progress in the Colorado room as I would have liked, but I have done some tunnel work in the last few days, and this tunnel is now complete. It may not look like it's complete because of the missing section, but that was done on purpose because eventually there'll be a mountain covering this tunnel, and I need to have access to the trains in the tunnel in case there's a derailment or something like that. And so what I'll have is a removable section of the mountain that'll allow me to get in the tunnel and get to the trains. Now, I know that some of you are opposed to me having tunnels in the Colorado room, mainly because I already have so many other tunnels on the layout. But hey, this is a mountain railroad, and you're going to have a lot of tunnels on a mountain railroad. And the fact of the matter is that I have to have tunnels in this room because I'm going to have an upper level up in the mountains. And on that upper level, I'm going to have a narrow gauge train running. This is ON30, it's O-scale narrow gauge, and I'm going to be running a train up in the mountains, either freight or passenger or both. And to have that upper level, I have to have tunnels down below. So even though I know some of you don't want more tunnels on the layout, I have to have them. But I did listen to your feedback, and I did change my plans based on that feedback. Originally, I was going to have one big tunnel going from here all the way around to just before that switch there. But I've changed those plans now to give a little more exposure to the trains. What I'm going to do now is have this tunnel here, and then it's going to end, and there's going to be a gap right here, and in this gap there'll be a really nice ravine, and then the tunnel will pick up again right there and end just before that switch. So that way, I'm going to have the tunnels that I need in order to have the upper level and the narrow gauge train on top, but I'll have a little opening there so that you can see a little more of the trains down below. So I think that's a pretty good compromise, and I wouldn't have done it without feedback from you guys. So I'm really excited that I altered the plans to add this ravine, because not only does it add more exposure for the trains down below, but for the narrow gauge train up top, it means that I can now build a trestle or bridge across the ravine, and that'll look really cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and follow the main line out of the Colorado room and back into the hallway room where the track goes across this narrow pass. I haven't done much work on the pass in the last year. It's looking pretty good, although I did add one more section of stone wall a few weeks ago. If we go across the pass, it'll take us back into the Carolina room. Back in the Carolina room, this side is opposite of the side you just saw a few minutes ago, and it consists of this L-shaped table that's not big enough for anything major, but it does allow for some nice scenery and so forth. The main line goes through this tunnel, and that takes it through this hill, where it comes out over on the other side right there. And then it continues down this way where there's an industrial siding for a yet-to-be-named future industry. And then the main line continues down this way through that tunnel that takes it back into the main room. Over the last year, I have not done a ton of work on this side of the Carolina room, and the main reason for that is because while this side is not finished, it is finished enough where I can move on to other areas of the layout that are not as complete. But I have done a few things. I've added a few more trees, and I've also added some signals. There's one right there, and then there's another one right over here, as well as a dwarf signal right there. But the most significant change over the last year is that I've completed the insert that I needed to have right here. This is an insert, and it pops out like that, and it allows me access to the track inside the tunnel. Pretty cool. And it's nice and camouflaged, so it fits right in, and you can hardly see it. Now, if you want more information on this insert, including how I made it, check out episode 24 of my video train blog series. Anyway, now that we've followed the main line all the way around the layout, let's take a look at the upper level of track. The upper level of track starts here in the Colorado room where it breaks off of the main line and then goes up this incline and across the narrow pass in the hallway room and then into the Carolina room where it goes up here and rides on top of the lower level. And it comes around this way. And then it goes up another incline, and then it goes through this top tunnel into the main room. When we come out of that tunnel, we are back in the main room and on the upper level of track in the main room, and the track comes behind these trees here, and then we have a siding that goes off this way and goes across this beautiful steel trestle. This is a stainless steel trestle that was custom built for me by Stainless Unlimited. He did a fantastic job on this trestle. He's going to be building a second and much larger steel trestle for me in the near future. I'll talk about that in just a couple minutes. The siding continues on over this way until it ends right here at the site of some future industry. And I'm not sure what industry is going to go here yet, but right now my thinking is that this industry may be the same industry that's down on the lower level on this siding right here. It may be that the cars are unloaded at a facility up here, and then the product is piped down here and over the tracks to another facility right here where the cars are loaded with the finished product. But that's not set in stone, that's just what I'm thinking about right now, and I could totally change my mind before it's all said and done. Okay, so let's move back over this way, and we'll continue to follow the upper level of track behind these new trees, and over to this section of the upper level, which has actually seen quite a bit of progress recently. The first thing you'll notice is the buildings. Now, the buildings are not in place permanently. I'm just playing around with their positions right now to see what works and what doesn't work. And when they are in place permanently, I will weather the buildings and make them look a little more realistic. And of course, there will be more buildings than you see here, and it may not even be the same buildings when it's all said and done. The masking tape there represents where I'm thinking about putting roads. So as you can see, I'm starting to plan where the roads and buildings will go up here, which is nice to see because if there's one thing my layout does not have a lot of right now, it's buildings. Back behind those buildings is a pop-up that I just created a few weeks ago. I don't know if you can see it. There are lines there in the wood, and what I did is I cut out a section of that wood and made it into a removable panel that can be removed so that I can easily gain access to this section of the layout. Now, when it's all said and done, I will put scenery and buildings and roads on top of that panel so that in the end, it'll be completely camouflage. In the back, that hill is also pretty new. It's been there for about a month. The tower on top is a lighted Lionel cell phone tower, and then I've got a bunch of nice trees up there as well. And, you know, just like everything else on this layout, it's not 100% done over there, but it's looking pretty good. I've also ballasted all the track up here, and speaking of track, let's go ahead and continue to follow the track as it goes along the back spine. The back spine is now complete, and the track is all ballasted, so it looks pretty nice. And that comes all the way across the room until we get to the other side right here. That hill that the track cuts through is brand new. I put it up about a week ago, and that's why there are no trees or anything like that on it except for that one tree back there. And then we've got sort of a blank canvas space here where I'm still planning buildings and roads and so forth. So hopefully over the next year this will continue to develop. And then the track ends right here, and this is where the second steel trestle will be on the layout. The second steel trestle is going to start right here and stretch about 20 feet all the way across the main room until it meets up with the other side of the upper loop, which is right here. So it's going to be a massive undertaking, like I said, about 20 feet long. It's going to be custom made by Stainless Unlimited, which is the same guy that made this steel trestle over here. So it should be fantastic once it's in place. I'm going to have him make it in about 3 sections because obviously shipping a 20-foot long trestle would be quite a chore and very expensive. The first section is going to be about 8 feet long, and it's going to start over here, and then it'll come this way until it gets about right there to where that creek is. And the trestle is not going to be straight like the tracks down below. It's going to kind of snake across this table until it meets up with the track on the other side. So it should be really cool once it's in place. I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping to have the first section in place by about February or March, and hopefully with any luck, before the next open house in 2013, I can have the whole thing done. That would be really cool. Okay, that about does it for layout update number 9. I think I've made pretty good progress on the layout over the last year, and I'm hoping to make even more progress before the next open house, which should be around November of 2013. Now it's time for everybody's favorite part. I'm going to put a camera on the front of the train and run it around the entire layout. I hope you enjoy it. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.